Her baby was declared dead. But what she found years later left everyone speechless. The evening was falling over the small town as the car rolled down the quiet road. Inside, tension was thick. He, a young ambitious lawyer, gripped the steering wheel, his knuckles white, while beside him, his wife tried to calm the storm of nerves that seemed to pulse between them. Suddenly, a figure appeared out of the darkness, a woman crossing the road. There was a deafening crash, the screech of metal, and a piercing scream. He froze, panic overtaking him. "What have we done?" he shouted, clutching his head. She, looking at his terrified face, felt a cold fear, yet beneath it, an unwavering resolve. "I'll take the blame," she said quietly but firmly. "You deserve a chance at your life, your career. You have to succeed." He stared at her, shocked, his heart squeezing painfully. He wanted to stop her, to argue, but in her eyes he saw something that made him fall silent: determination, pain, and love all at once. At the trial, she spoke nothing but the truth, her truth. She accepted full responsibility, knowing her life would be reduced to cold prison walls. Year after year, she watched as her freedom, her very existence, slipped further away. Then, inside the prison's infirmary, she discovered she was pregnant. Her child was a fragile spark of hope amidst the gray walls. She touched her belly, whispering to the tiny life within, dreaming of the day she could show her child the world. But the cruel twist of fate came swiftly. The doctor's words hit her like a physical blow. The baby had died during childbirth. Her world shattered. Rage, grief, and despair crashed over her in waves. She felt betrayed by fate itself, almost losing faith that she would ever know happiness again. Meanwhile, the man who had been in the car with her, the man whose life she had tried to protect, nurtured a growing fire of anger and revenge. Bitterness and rage consumed him. In his heart, a dark idea began to form. One day, he would make her pay for everything. The prison was cold, unwelcoming, and unforgiving. Concrete walls seemed to swallow every ounce of hope. Yet, she endured. Every day was a battle against the bitterness of fellow inmates, the harshness of guards, and the gnawing loneliness of a life taken from her. But inside, a small flame refused to die. She learned quickly to navigate the rules, to stay unnoticed, and to survive. Her mind often wandered to the life she had left behind, the man she loved, the career he was building, and the child she would never hold. Nights were the hardest. In the dim light of her cell, she whispered to the child in her womb, promising to love them, even if the world seemed determined to take everything away. When the day came, she gave birth in the stark, sterile prison hospital. The cries of a newborn should have been the sweetest sound. Yet the world she lived in offered her only a cruel lie. The baby didn't survive, the doctor said, eyes avoiding hers. The words hit her like ice. For a moment, the walls of the prison seemed to close in completely. She could hardly breathe, could hardly think. Yet, even in that despair, a quiet strength emerged. She would survive, if only to remember, to honor the life that had been cruelly taken from her. Outside the prison, the man she had protected was living a very different life. His legal career was flourishing just as she had hoped, but the accident and her selfless choice had left a scar on him that no success could erase. Anger, guilt, and a desire for control began to intertwine in ways he barely understood. Unknown to her, he had taken a silent vow of revenge, not only for the accident, but for the secret he believed she had kept. He had acquired custody of the child she thought was dead, raising the girl as his own. Each day, he whispered to himself, planning the moment when their paths would cross again, and when he would have his justice. Back in her cell, she counted the days, clinging to the hope of freedom, unaware of the intricate web of deceit and vengeance that awaited her. The thought of meeting her child, of finally holding her, was a dream that kept her alive through the long, merciless years. The day she walked out of the prison gates, the sunlight felt foreign on her skin. 7 years of cold walls, harsh routines, and stolen time had left their mark. Her body was free, but her heart carried scars that would not heal overnight. Each step forward was heavy with the weight of the past. Yet there was a quiet determination in her eyes. She would reclaim what was hers, even if the world had tried to take everything. With few options, she found work as a housekeeper in a large, elegant house on the outskirts of the city. The rooms were spotless, the air smelled of polished wood and faint perfume, and every corner reflected wealth and control. She moved quietly, invisible like a shadow, unaware that fate had woven her path to cross with the very man whose life she had once saved and whose wrath had grown silently over the years. He, now a man hardened by time and anger, had transformed the once private grief over the accident into a calculated plan of revenge. He had everything a man could want: power, wealth, and his daughter, raised with all the comforts she had been denied. Yet, beneath the surface, the old wounds festered. He had watched her from afar, knowing one day she would be out, and when she walked into his life, He saw the perfect opportunity to exert control, to remind her of the price of her past choices. She did not know it yet, but her daughter, the child she had been told was dead, was right under her nose. The little girl with bright eyes and a mischievous smile was the living proof of her sacrifice. And the man, her former partner in tragedy, had built his life around keeping the girl from ever knowing her true mother. As the days passed, she moved silently through the house, cleaning, organizing, and serving without complaint. Every detail of the house, every motion of the household, seemed to place her closer to a secret she could not yet imagine. She felt a strange pull, an invisible thread connecting her to the home, to the people inside, and to the life that had been cruelly stolen from her. Meanwhile, the man watched her with a mixture of suspicion and curiosity. He saw in her a resilience he could not destroy, a quiet strength that reminded him of the woman who had once chosen him over herself. And yet, his anger and plans for revenge would not allow him to reveal the truth. Not yet. The tension was electric. Every encounter, every word exchanged was layered with unspoken truths. And though she did not yet know it, the greatest revelation of all, her daughter was closer than ever. Days turned into weeks as she settled into her new life as a housekeeper. The routine was grueling but predictable, and for the first time in years, she felt a fragile sense of stability. Yet, shadows of the past haunted her every move. Every glance from her employer seemed charged with unspoken words. Every passing moment a reminder of the life she had lost. The man, meticulous and calculating, observed her silently. He noticed the way she moved, the subtle gestures of her hands, the quiet determination in her eyes. Something about her presence stirred memories long buried, memories of the woman who had sacrificed herself so that he could flourish. He hated her for it, yet a part of him still respected her courage. That duality fueled the tension in the house, making every interaction a delicate game of power and restraint. And then there was the child. The little girl, with her golden curls and mischievous smile, moved through the house with an innocence that belied the storm surrounding her. She spoke freely, laughed without fear, and clung to her father. Unaware of the secrets hidden within the walls of the home, the woman could feel an inexplicable pull toward the child, a warmth in her chest she could not explain. Something deep within her whispered that this child was connected to her, in a way she could not yet understand. Subtle clues began to emerge. A birthmark on the girl's arm, the color of her eyes, the delicate curve of her smile, it all resonated with memories she had long buried. Her heart pounded with a mixture of hope and fear. Could it really be possible? Could this child, the living proof of her lost motherhood, actually be alive? The man, aware of her growing attachment, took measures to protect his secret. He became stricter, more controlling, testing her boundaries while maintaining the appearance of normality. Yet he underestimated the depth of her instincts, her intuition, and her unyielding love as a mother. Tension simmered beneath the surface of everyday routines. Every meal she served, every corner she polished, every interaction with the girl brought her closer to a truth that could shatter everything or set it right. She felt the invisible thread tightening, guiding her toward revelations that would challenge the man's control and confront the lies that had defined their lives. And in the quiet moments, when the house was still, she allowed herself to dream. She imagined holding the child in her arms, feeling the warmth of her tiny body, and reclaiming the motherhood that had been stolen. The thought gave her strength, fueled her determination, and set the stage for the inevitable collision between past and present. The air in the house had grown heavier with each passing day. The woman moved with practiced quiet, but her mind was alert, always observing the girl, always noticing the small, uncanny details that whispered of a hidden truth. The girl's laugh, the way she tilted her head when curious, the peculiar gestures she made. Each small clue chipped away at the barrier she had built around her heart. One evening, as she was tidying the girl's room, she noticed something, a tiny birthmark on the child's wrist. Her breath caught. It was the same mark she had seen during her brief glimpse of the baby in the prison hospital. She dropped the cloth she was holding, trembling, as a flood of memories crashed over her. Could it really be possible? Could the child she had been told was dead actually be alive? Her mind raced, trying to piece together the impossible. She remembered the doctor's cold words, the endless years of solitude, the whispered promises she had made to a child she had never held. And now, standing before her, was living proof that fate had been cruelly deceptive, but perhaps, just perhaps, there was still hope. Meanwhile, the man noticed the change in her demeanor. He watched as her hands shook slightly, as her eyes lingered a moment too long on the girl. His chest tightened with a mixture of fear and anger. He had spent years carefully constructing a life around the secret, keeping his daughter close while controlling the narrative. Now, he realized, the walls he had built were beginning to crumble. That evening, he confronted her in the kitchen. His voice was calm, but underneath, it carried a warning. "You seem distracted," he said, eyes narrowing. "Is everything all right?" She met his gaze, steady despite the storm within. Yes, she said softly, forcing a smile. But she knew he could sense her unease. The tension was palpable. Every word, every glance, carried hidden meaning. She had to be careful, yet her maternal instincts drove her closer to the truth. And the man, sensing her growing attachment to the girl, tightened his grip, trying to manipulate her without revealing his secrets. But the threads of fate were too strong. They were pulling her closer, guiding her toward the revelation that would change everything. And deep down, she knew that the moment of truth was approaching, when she would confront the man, when she would face the past, and when she would finally learn the fate of her daughter. In the quiet of the night, as the girl slept peacefully in her room, the woman stood by the window, looking out at the moonlit garden. Her heart ached with longing, fear, and determination. She whispered a silent promise to the child she had yet to embrace. I will find you, I will protect you, and no one will take you from me again. The days that followed were filled with quiet observation, subtle test, and a growing tension that neither of them could fully control. She found herself drawn more and more to the girl, noticing the smallest details that reminded her of herself, tiny quirks, gestures, and the color of the child's eyes. Every moment with her was both a joy and a dagger, a bittersweet reminder of what had been stolen and what might still be reclaimed. One afternoon, the truth revealed itself in the most unexpected way. The girl, exploring the house as she often did, discovered an old photograph hidden in a drawer, a photograph of the woman as a young mother, holding a newborn swaddled tightly in her arms. The girl's eyes widened in recognition of the uncanny resemblance, and she brought it to her father, her voice filled with innocent curiosity. The man's face went pale. The photograph had been carefully hidden, but now it was in the hands of those who were closest to discovering the truth. Panic surged in him, but he knew he had to maintain control. Where did you find this? He asked, his voice sharp but measured. The girl looked from him to the woman, the realization dawning in her own way, sensing an invisible connection that words could not explain. I found it here, she said softly, holding the photograph out. The woman froze, heart hammering. She took the photograph, her hands trembling. The resemblance was undeniable. Every feature of the child, the eyes, the shape of the face. The tiny hands spoke a language that transcended time and deception. This was her daughter. Her heart ached with joy, disbelief, and the raw intensity of years of lost love. The man, seeing the truth in her eyes, felt a strange mixture of guilt, fear, and admiration. He had tried to control everything, to exact revenge, to protect his secret, but the human heart could not be contained so easily. Is she yours? He asked, his voice barely a whisper, the words heavy with the weight of years. She looked at the child, then at him, and finally spoke with a voice trembling yet resolute. Yes, she is mine. The revelation hung in the air, electric and overwhelming. The child, sensing the shift, ran into the woman's arms, embracing her as if she had always known this connection existed. Tears flowed freely down the woman's face, a mixture of sorrow for lost years and joy for this miraculous reunion. The man stepped back, his own emotions conflicting, anger at the past, relief that the secret was finally out, and awe at the strength of the woman before him. He realized that revenge had no place here, that the only path forward was acceptance and healing. For the first time in years, the walls between them began to crumble. The woman held her daughter tightly, whispering promises she had longed to keep. I will never let anyone take you from me again. You are my heart, my soul, my everything. The child looked up, eyes wide and trusting, and the woman knew in that moment that they had survived the darkest chapters. Love had returned, stronger than all the lies, betrayals, and tragedies that had come before. The days after the revelation were a whirlwind of emotions, each one more intense than the last. The woman and her daughter spent every possible moment together, learning each other's rhythms, discovering shared smiles, and creating new memories to replace the lost years. Every hug, every whispered word, was a step toward reclaiming the family that had been ripped apart by tragedy and deception. The man, once consumed by anger and revenge, began to change. Watching the bond between mother and daughter grow, he realized that love and forgiveness were stronger than bitterness. The revenge he had plotted for years had lost its purpose. He had been given a second chance at humanity, a chance to let go of past grievances. He approached her one quiet evening, his voice gentle, almost vulnerable. I see now. I was wrong. I let anger blind me, and I kept a secret that should never have existed. You've suffered more than I could imagine, and she deserves to know the truth. The woman met his gaze, a mix of caution and understanding in her eyes. The past cannot be erased, she said softly, but we can choose how to move forward. For her, we must do better. Together, they worked to rebuild the fragile trust between them. The woman's love for her daughter was unwavering, and the man slowly learned to respect and support that bond. The child, unaware of the depth of the past conflicts, thrived in the warmth of her mother's care and the stability of the home. Months passed, and the household transformed. The walls that had once held secrets and pain now echoed with laughter and life. Family dinners became moments of connection, bedtime stories a nightly ritual of love, and the simple presence of each other a balm to old wounds. Those scars remained reminders of suffering, loss, and deception. They no longer dictated the future. The woman had reclaimed her role as a mother. Her daughter had found the truth about her identity. And even the man had discovered that redemption was possible when guided by conscience rather than vengeance. One evening, as the sun set and cast golden light across the garden, the woman held her daughter's hand and smiled. "We've found each other again," she whispered. The child looked up with wide eyes, full of innocence and trust. "And we'll never be apart," she replied. In that moment, the past was finally reconciled with the present. Love had triumphed over betrayal. Courage had overcome despair, and a family torn apart by tragedy had found its way back to each other. The shadows of guilt and vengeance had lifted, leaving behind hope, healing, and a promise of a future built together. And though life would always hold challenges, they faced them united, stronger, wiser, and forever bound by the unbreakable thread of love.